Stop waiting for the rare lightning strike of inspiration. You know that moment I'm talking about, when the clock fades, your hands move without thinking, and the world narrows until only the work and you remain? That moment is not a miracle reserved for geniuses and lucky athletes. It's a state, a skill, and yes, something you can train into your life. Today, I'm going to yank you out of the spectator seat and hand you the tools to build that state on purpose. Ready? Good. Let's begin. Picture this. You're working and suddenly everything lines up. Ideas flow, mistakes evaporate, output multiplies. You feel powerful, calm, and ridiculously efficient. Time compresses or stretches, it stops nagging you. That's what people call flow. It's the place where performance meets pleasure and where your best work shows up naturally. When you're in flow, effort feels invisible. You don't push, you move. You don't overthink, you execute. You become bigger than your doubts and quieter than your fears. Most people treat flow like an accident, something that happens when the mood is right. They blame phones, noisy apartments, bad bosses, or the weather. Some wait for a cup of perfect coffee or the right playlist. That explains why most days pass without it. Here's the brutal truth. Waiting is a strategy for staying ordinary. Flow is a result of conditions you create, not conditions you hope for. What is flow, really? It's a full immersion state where your attention locks onto a single challenge that matches your skill level. The challenge is neither boring nor terrifying. It sits exactly at the edge of what you can do. You're stretched, but not broken. Feedback is immediate, so you adjust fast. Your sense of self recedes, and the task becomes the center. That disappearance of the self is not mystical, it's practical. When your inner critic takes a back seat, your focus sharpens. Your nervous system stops parachuting doubt into every decision. The result is clarity and momentum. Why does flow matter more than you think? Because it's the fastest route to mastery and satisfaction. When you produce in flow, you produce quality at speed. You learn faster because the brain rewards focused practice. You feel engaged, which means you'll return to the work again and again. Success isn't about working harder, it's about stacking these high-quality sessions. The athletes, the musicians, the founders who break through all learned how to convert messy effort into intentional flow. They didn't wait for motivation, they built conditions that made flow likely. Let's name the enemies. Distraction steals flow like a silent thief. Multitasking tricks you into believing you're busy, while your cognitive power drifts in tiny, expensive fragments. Anxiety and fear of failure lock up your attention in a loop of self-criticism. Internal noise, the chatter of what could go wrong or who will judge you, collapses your focus before it begins. And then there's the biggest saboteur, unclear goals. If you can't see the next move, your brain wanders. Flow hates ambiguity. So, how do you recognize it when it arrives? Watch for the signs. Deep concentration that feels effortless, a loss of self-consciousness, a heightened sense of control, and time warping. Often hours pass while you feel like minutes. There's joy there, but not the fickle joy of entertainment. It's a hard-earned satisfaction, the kind that comes after you've wrestled with something and won. You might think flow is only useful in creative work, but you're wrong. Flow appears in spreadsheets, in negotiating deals, in grinding through code, and in parenting difficult conversations. Anytime clarity and skill collide, boom, flow. It's the difference between slogging through a task and making it sing. The world's best performers across domains don't all share talent, they share repeated immersion in this state. That's the competitive advantage you can catch. Here's a truth that flips the script. Flow is not some ephemeral reward for doing what you love. It's more faithful to structure than to passion. You can engineer flow around tasks you don't naturally adore by reframing the challenge and sharpening your attention. That's empowering because it means your life doesn't hinge on discovering a single magical vocation. You can make almost any meaningful work into a flow playground if you design the right environment. Let's dismantle the myth that flow is purely emotional. It's biochemical and architectural. Your brain releases neurotransmitters in specific ways when focused. Dopamine and norepinephrine amplify your attention and learning. Your nervous system settles into efficient patterns when distractions are removed. And your habits form the architecture that makes this state repeatable. So the plan is simple in theory. Clear the noise, set a challenge, tune feedback, and repeat until it becomes second nature. But what about fear? Fear is loud because it lives in the future, a mental TV broadcasting worst-case scenarios. Flow anchors you in the immediate task. It silences that television. You don't become fearless by denying fear. You become fearless by shifting your relationship to it. When you view fear as data rather than destiny, you can keep acting despite it. That's how champions push past hesitations without losing the precision that makes their actions powerful. You'll hear advice about deep work and time blocking. Those are useful tools, but they're not the whole story. Time blocks give you the territory. Flow gives you the movement within it. The block is the field, flow is the run. You need both. Treat your work like a craft that requires repeated, focused practice. Respect the block as sacred time. Within it, craft conditions for flow, clarity, minimal friction, and feedback that's immediate and honest. Many people sabotage the possibility of flow before they start. They open email, they check metrics, they let their phone become the referee of their attention. Each interruption scatters the cognitive resources you need. Every tiny switch costs energy and momentum. If you want flow, learn to protect those first decisive minutes. They're the soil where flow grows. Another habit to adopt: raise the stakes in a smart way. Flow likes meaning. It likes a personal standard that matters to you. Call it pride, craft, or curiosity. Whatever name you choose, it's the fuel that keeps you invested when the initial novelty fades. A challenge slightly harder than your current skill makes your brain lean in, not back. Too easy, and boredom steals your focus. Too hard, and anxiety shuts you down. The edge is where the magic happens. Don't confuse busyness with progress. Flow produces measurable, high-quality output. Busy work gives you the illusion of productivity and the reality of exhaustion. Learn to judge your day by what moved your goals forward in a way that could only happen with focused immersion. That's your worth metric. Now, a reality check. Flow is not always comfortable. It asks you to be present and intentional. It requires you to choose concentration over comfort. It will reveal the weaknesses in your skills and the holes in your preparation. But those revelations are gifts. They tell you where to grow. If you welcome them, your progress accelerates. Before we move on to how to build these conditions deliberately, take a moment and reflect. What are the moments in your life when work felt effortless and exhilarating? Where did you lose track of time? Those are your clues. They point to environments, tasks, and mental states that already support flow. You don't need to reinvent everything. You need to amplify what works. Write in the comments right now, what was the last time you lost track of time because you were so absorbed in what you were doing? Describe it in one sentence: where you were, what you were doing, and how you felt. Your story could be the clue someone else needs to spark their own flow. What's your one-sentence moment? Part 2. Flow doesn't arrive by accident. It's engineered. If Part 1 woke you up to the possibility, this part gives you the blueprint. I'm going to show you the exact ingredients that create flow and how to assemble them like a craftsman building a tool. No fluff. Just what works. Listen and act. Start with clarity. You must be able to see the next move with surgical precision. Vague goals are kryptonite. Work on project is worthless. Write 500 words that solve X problem is usable. Your brain craves a target it can lock onto. The more precise the target, the less your mind wanders. When the goal is a clear next step, attention attaches like a magnet. Next, set the challenge right at the edge of your ability. This is where most people fail. They either choose tasks that are too safe or tasks that are paralyzing. Flow loves the edge, that sweet spot where you're stretched but capable. If you want to feel that electric concentration, raise the difficulty just enough that you must focus. Not so much that you freeze, not so little that you yawn. That balance is the geometry of flow. Immediate feedback is your friend. Flow needs quick signals about how you're doing. When you code, run the test often. When you practice an instrument, listen and correct. When you pitch a client, watch their face and adjust. Feedback closes the loop between action and learning. It keeps your brain engaged and prevents drift into autopilot. Design tasks so you can see the results fast. Micro goals and quick wins are crucial. Create rituals that put your mind into a single lane. Rituals are not superstition. They are psychological shortcuts. A 5-minute warm-up, a breathing pattern, an index card with the next 3 moves. These are rituals that tell your brain, now we work. Do the same pre-work routine, and the brain begins to associate those actions with focus. Over time, the ritual becomes a trigger. The moment you perform it, attention tightens. Protect the first minutes like a sacred resource. The beginning of a session is fragile. If you let your attention scatter in that first stretch, you'll pay for it the whole time. Silence notifications, close extra tabs, set a short timer for intense focus. Those first breaths determine whether you enter flow or slide into surface level busyness. Treat them like a ceremony. Manage energy, not just time. Flow requires fuel, mental energy, emotional balance, physical readiness. You can schedule everything perfectly and still fail to flow if you're depleted. Hydrate, move, sleep, these things matter. Also, watch your emotional temperature. If you're anxious, use breathing to lower it. If you're flat, use a quick physical burst to wake your system. Energy management is the difference between a day of distractions and a day with multiple flow sessions. Design your workspace with intention. Reduce friction until the path between you and your work is smooth. That means tools ready, distractions out of sight, materials organized. It also means choosing an environment that matches the task. High-focus work often needs solitude. Creative brainstorming might benefit from a noisy cafe or music that pushes you. Know which environment activates your attention and use it like a lever. Use micro goals to create progress loops. Big projects feel overwhelming. They kill focus. Break the work into short, measurable chunks with immediate outcomes. Each micro goal is a mini feedback event. Complete the chunk, get the dopamine hit, and go for the next. This rhythm mimics the conditions of video games. Constant, clear feedback for every action, and your brain loves it. Practice single tasking like it's your job. Multitasking is a myth and a drain. Shallow attention fragments your cognitive power into dozens of weak attempts. Single tasking concentrates all your resources on one meaningful action. If you want flow, Do one thing and do it with your whole mind. If distractions try to pull you away, remind yourself that you chose this focus intentionally. Introduce friction for distractions. You don't just remove distractions, you build small resistances that protect your focus. Put your phone in another room, use a browser extension that blocks social sites, require a two-step process to access email. Make distraction slightly inconvenient. The extra effort breaks the automatic habit of switching and preserves your concentrated bandwidth. Use novelty to sharpen attention. The brain pays attention to what's new. If a task is stale, find a way to inject novelty. A new method, a different tool, a time constraint, a new collaborator. Novelty raises arousal in a useful way and pulls you toward engagement. But use novelty intelligently. Too much novelty scatters attention. A touch is enough to wake you. Train your attention like a muscle. Short daily practices, focused reading, breath work, single idea meditation, strengthen your capacity to sustain attention. You don't need hours to train. 10 minutes of deliberate, focused practice each day compounds. Over weeks, those minutes add up into a far greater ability to hold flow. Leverage constraints to boost creativity. Constraints force choices. When you limit options, time, tools, scope, your mind becomes inventive. Instead of seeing limits as barriers, treat them as design features. Flow thrives under constraints because choices become clearer and the path forward tightens. Use accountability to increase stakes. Flow likes meaning. Meaning often comes from commitment. Pair with someone, post a public goal, or set a short deadline. When stakes rise, your investment increases and your brain leans into focus. Accountability is a social lever you can pull to make flow more accessible. Understand the role of feedback loops beyond the moment. After a flow session, reflect what worked, what broke focus. Capture those observations immediately so your next session improves. This reflection fuels skill growth. The champions who access flow regularly are not lucky. They iterate. They treat each session as data and use it to tune the next one. Remember, technique without purpose is empty. The conditions I'm describing without meaning create tidy but hollow sessions. Integrate your goals with your values. Why does this work matter? What outcome are you moving toward? When challenge, clarity, and feedback align with meaning, flow becomes magnetic. You won't have to cajole yourself into focus. You'll be drawn to the work. A practical sequence to try right now. Pick a single, precise task. Set a 45 to 60-minute timer. Eliminate distractions and prepare your tools. Do a 2-minute ritual to breathe and set intention. Work with one micro goal and immediate feedback. When the timer rings, write one sentence about what helped and what blocked you. Do that sequence 3 times this week and watch your capacity to enter flow expand. Small experiments build mastery. Don't attempt to overhaul your life in a day. Try different rituals, time windows, and environments. Track the results. Keep what works and discard what doesn't. Over time, you'll build a personal operating system for flow, one tailored to your rhythm, your tasks, and your life. Some of the great teachers hinted at this. Earl Nightingale spoke about, "We become what we think about." And that's true of attention. What you habitually attend to shapes your reality. Dale Carnegie taught that genuine interest and clarity in communication move people, and clear attention moves systems. Napoleon Hill's emphasis on definite purpose ties into the idea that clarity of goal fuels sustained effort. Use these ideas sparingly, as tools, not dogma. Now act. Choose one concrete task and use the sequence I just gave. Protect the opening minutes, aim for the edge of your skill, seek immediate feedback. Report back. Write in the comments, which exact task will you use to try this flow experiment? Be specific. Name the task, the time window you'll use, and what your one micro goal will be. Make it real. Here's the question that will push you. What one small ritual could you start right now that would make entering flow 10 times easier for you? Part 3. Your attention is the engine. If parts 1 and 2 gave you the why and the blueprint, this part drills into the engine itself. How focus actually works, why silence inside beats willpower, and the practical techniques that let you slide into flow fast. This is where mechanics meet practice. Pay attention to these methods. They change everything. First, understand what's happening in your brain. When you focus, networks that handle attention and goal-directed behavior, the prefrontal cortex and related systems, come online and quiet down the parts that gossip, worry, and distract. Neurochemicals like dopamine and norepinephrine tune your sensitivity to rewards and sharpen your reaction time. In flow, your brain reduces noisy background chatter and channels resources into one task. That reduction of chatter is not about silencing thoughts forever. It's about managing them so they stop hijacking your action. Think of your mind like a radio. You don't destroy the other stations, you simply turn the dial to the one you want to hear. Second, stop thinking that more thinking equals better thinking. Control is often a clumsy friend. The tighter you grip decisions, the more your mind panics and produces inner commentary. Control looks like over-checking, editing while creating, or second-guessing every move. Presence looks different. It's a relaxed, alert observation that notices and returns to the task. You cultivate presence by practicing small acts of attention, reading a paragraph and summarizing it without looking back, holding a breath for a count and noticing how your body responds, or tracing the movement of your pen as you write one sentence. These tiny exercises train the pathway from distraction back to focus. Breathwork is underrated and immediate. A simple pattern: inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6, shifts your nervous system out of agitation and into readiness. Use breath to calibrate your arousal. If you're jittery, slow your exhale. If you're numb, add a few sharp inhales and a short physical movement. Breath is portable and private. It's a technology you already carry. Use it at the start of every session to anchor yourself. Rituals are not fussy habits. They are practical triggers. A 5-step pre-work ritual could be as minimal as 1. Clear the surface. 2. Set the timer. 3. Take 3 slow breaths. 4. State your micro goal out loud. 5. Start immediately. Saying the micro goal out loud changes the way your brain treats it. Speech organizes thought. The ritual creates a predictable transition from scattered to concentrated. Do the ritual enough times and the brain learns the sequence. This pattern equals focus. The ritual becomes automatic, your personal ignition switch. Now, internal dialogue. It's loud because it fills gaps. When your mind lacks clear next moves, the dialogue rushes in with commentary. You stop it by supplying a precise next move. Instead of work on project, say, draft 3 bullet points that define the argument for section B. Give your attention a narrow, actionable target, and the chatter will evacuate. If negative thoughts still surface, name them quickly. There's doubt, and return to work. Labeling a thought weakens its power and gets you back to work. Use concentration anchors to tether attention. Anchors are sensory or cognitive cues that pull you back when you drift. It could be the sound of a metronome, the feel of a textured wristband, or the sight of a single sticky note with your microgoal. When you catch your mind wandering, use the anchor to return, a soft reset, not a scolding. Over time, anchors make returns faster and less costly. Learn the art of chunked attention. Your brain is not built for indefinite hyperfocus. It prefers cycles. Work in intense bursts, 45 to 90 minutes for many people, followed by short recovery, 5 to 15 minutes. During the burst, eliminate interruptions. During the recovery, move, hydrate, or do something unrelated to the task. Micro-recovery moments replenish the nervous system and prevent burnout. Elite performers treat these cycles as sacred. The intense run is where flow appears. The recovery is where the system rebuilds. Understand the difference between presence and suppression. Trying to suppress thoughts is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It pops up with more force. Presence accepts thought, but refuses to follow it. Practice this by noticing a passing thought and bringing attention back to the breath or the task without judgment. Do this with gentleness. The calmer you are about your wandering mind, the faster it settles. Use environmental cues to reduce decision fatigue. Decisions drain attention. When your environment tells you the next move, tools at hand, screen ready to the right document, a single playlist, you spend less energy on micro choices and more on work. Layout matters. Make the path from intention to action the shortest route possible. There's a quiet power in single sensory narrowing. Reduce what your senses must manage. If you are writing, silence visual clutter. If you are composing music, remove email sounds. For some tasks, a small amount of background sound can help. For others, silence is the clearest path. Experiment and discover which sensory reduction helps you sink deeper. Slow down to speed up. In flow, timing matters. Rushing creates sloppy loops and breaks feedback. Slow, deliberate action improves signal quality. You notice errors faster, you correct more precisely, and you build clean momentum. This does not mean move slowly all the time. It means when you begin, aim for precision and clarity so your next moves become effortless. Practice attention-building exercises daily. Simple drills like focused reading for 10 minutes, single problem solving, or breath-centered concentration improve baseline attention. Track your progress. If your average focus stretch increases from 10 to 20 minutes over a month, you've doubled your capacity. Measurable growth that feeds confidence and flow access. Use mental models to simplify complex tasks. When you can reduce a problem into a few core principles, you spend attention on decision-making rather than confusion. Models are mental shortcuts that let you act quickly and with clarity. Learn a handful of models for your work and practice using them until they feel natural. Recognize the role of curiosity. Curiosity is attention's ally. When you approach a task with the mindset of discovery, what will I find if I try this? You engage reward systems that support sustained focus. Curiosity changes the tone from obligation to exploration and makes the work more inviting. Finally, extend flow by planning end-to-end experiences. Build a session that starts with a ritual, includes a primary chunk and a stretch goal, and finishes with a short reflection. Reflection matters. It turns the session into feedback. Ask 2 questions after each run. What helped my focus? What broke it? Record 1 concrete change to try next time. This loop creates compound improvements. Flow becomes less random and more systematic. Now, act. Choose one technique from this part, breath work, a ritual, an anchor, or chunked attention, and use it in your next session. Don't try them all at once. Pick one, practice it for a week, and measure your results. Write in the comments right now, which single technique will you commit to practicing for the next 7 days? Be specific. Name it and say how you'll use it in your next session. Here's the question that will pull you deeper. What single internal voice do you want to quiet so your work can speak louder? Part 4. Most people treat flow like a rare visitor. Show up when it arrives, enjoy it, then wait for the next blessing. That's a luxury strategy. If you want high-level results, you need a residency plan. How to invite flow into your everyday life so it becomes part of your daily operating system. This part is about making flow habitual, not forced, not robotic, but reliable. If part 3 tuned your engine, now we wire it into the house. First, rethink your day as a sequence of deliberate states, not a list of tasks. You don't only schedule things, you schedule mental modes. Block time for deep, shallow, creative, and social modes. Protect the deep blocks like appointments with a high-performing version of yourself. If you give away the deep blocks to meetings or email, you erode your capacity to produce focused work. Deep work is not for later, it's the backbone of your week. Create micro environments. You don't need a perfect retreat to access flow, you need the right mini conditions. Identify 3 micro environments that reliably support focused work: a quiet room, a noisy cafe, a short walk with no phone. Assign types of activity to each environment. Use the cafe for idea generation. Use the quiet room for editing. Use the walk for problem incubation. When you match task to microenvironment, you reduce the friction of starting. Make transitions intentional. People waste attention in fuzzy handoffs between activities. Build small rituals to move between modes: a 2-minute breath, a 5-step physical reset, changing a playlist, or a single sentence that defines your next move. These micro rituals convert fuzzy transitions into clean starts. The cleaner the start, the quicker flow arrives. Guard your calendar like it's a scarce resource. Too many meetings, too many shallow commitments, these are attention taxes. Consolidate meetings into focused blocks where possible. Protect large, uninterrupted spans for work that requires flow. If you cannot eliminate a meeting, prepare a pre-session ritual so you arrive with clarity and leave with a clear next step. Meetings should be fuel, not drain. Design your mornings and evenings to support the core of your day. Morning rituals set the tone. Evening routines process the day and unload worries so your brain can sleep and rebuild. A short evening reflection, what one thing went well, what one thing you'll improve next, converts random experiences into learning. Sleep and recovery are not optional, they're a multiplier. You cannot stack flow sessions when your nervous system is burnt out. Use the power of momentum. Start your day with a small, meaningful win to generate biochemical momentum. It could be a 5-minute focused writing task, a simple workout, or clearing one annoying email. Momentum builds dopamine and confidence. It makes the next, harder flow session easier to enter. Don't underestimate the simple rituals that create upward spirals. Build social habits that protect and amplify focus. When you share goals with a partner, an accountability group, or a teammate, your focus gains external reinforcement. Use focus co-working sessions. 2 people connect, set a micro goal, work silently for a set time, and then share outcomes. The social contract raises the stakes without creating pressure that kills creativity. Use social hooks to make your practice consistent. Normalize short, frequent flow sessions. Not every session needs to be a 3-hour epic. 10 to 45-minute focused sprints repeated multiple times a day can outscore a single long run. Short sessions reduce the barrier to starting and allow you to weave flow into ordinary life, on your commute if safe, before lunch, or in the hour before evening distractions begin. Think of flow like exercise. Small daily doses compound into strength. Create no interruption windows. Inform your team and family about these windows and make them visible. A calendar color, a closed door, an app status. No interruption windows are sacred and should be used for your most important work. If that feels impossible, Start with 5 minutes and expand. The point is to teach your environment that your attention is a non-renewable resource during certain times. Intentionally use low distraction devices. Phones and computers are tools, not tyrants. Configure them to help. Notifications off, focus mode on. Single tab workspaces. Make your tools serve your attention instead of harvesting it. Small configuration choices, a dedicated writing profile, a clean desktop, no social icons, reduce cognitive clutter and make deep work less frictional. Cultivate recovery rituals between sessions. Work wears on your nervous system. Recovery rebuilds it. Recovery doesn't mean long breaks every hour. It means targeted resets that restore attention. Walks, breathing cycles, short stretches, or simple acts of neurostimulation, cold water on the face, a brisk stair climb, move blood and reset cognitive clarity. Learn what recovers you quickly and use it as part of your rhythm. Practice pre-mortem thinking for long projects. Before you begin a big run, imagine what might break your flow. Attention leaks, unclear milestones, emotional fatigue, and plan simple defenses. The pre-mortem converts vague anxiety into tactical countermeasures. When you foresee the common failures, you reduce their power. Integrate learning into your flow practice. Block time for deliberate skill development that sits at the edge of your abilities. Use focused, high-quality practice rather than random repetition. Combine challenge with feedback and reflection. If you approach skill work like a craftsman, flow becomes not just a productivity tool, but the furnace where competence is forged. Remove the glorification of burnout. Too many people brag about being constantly busy, as if exhaustion is a medal. That mentality destroys flow. Flow requires care, sleep, micro-recovery, and boundaries. Make recovery as respectable as productivity in your own narrative. A rested system is a flow-rich system. Use constraints to your advantage. Deadlines, limited tools, or short time windows force creative focus. When you give yourself constraints, write with one hand, limit your palette, set a hard deadline, your mind makes decisive choices and flow arrives faster. Constraints reduce the paralysis of endless options. Develop rebound strategies for interruptions. In real life, interruptions will happen. Have a quick protocol. Pause, note the interrupting thought in one sentence, set a 30-second plan for how you'll return, and resume. That note and plan practice prevents interruptions from leaving you in a fugue of reorientation. It makes returns faster and less costly. Make the maintenance visible. Keep a simple log. Session length, what helped, what broke, one tweak to try next. This lightweight feedback loop is gold. After weeks, you'll see patterns and make adjustments that turn emergent habits into stable systems. Visibility equals accountability equals refinement. Finally, make flow part of your identity. How you speak about your work matters. Say things like, I protect my deep hours, or I experiment with one ritual this week. Language frames behavior. When you say you are someone who cares for focus and designs your day, you prime yourself to behave that way. Identity change is subtle but powerful. It aligns daily decisions with a larger self-image. Now take one step. Look at your calendar for the next 48 hours. Block 2 windows labeled Deep Practice, one 45-minute window and one 20-minute sprint. Prepare a 1-sentence micro-goal for each and leave a 2-minute ritual note to start. Commit to the plan and treat it like a promise to a version of you who does important work. Write in the comments, what will you block in your calendar in the next 48 hours for deep practice? Be specific. Start time, duration, and the 1-sentence micro-goal. Make it a promise to yourself. Here's the question that cuts deep. What boundary are you willing to draw today to protect the person you want to become? Part 5. You've learned the engine, the wiring, the rituals, and the daily architecture. Now it's time to bring flow into the rest of your life. Not as a project to finish, but as the way you live and work at your highest capacity. This is the part where practice turns into character. If you want to be someone who produces at the top of their game while staying whole, listen closely. The final step is integration, and it asks for courage, balance, and devotion to craft. First, make meaning your compass. Flow without meaning is like speed without direction, thrilling for a moment, empty in the long run. Purpose anchors flow. It transforms repeated sessions into a life that feels earned. Ask yourself bluntly, what part of my work matters beyond the scoreboard? Which people, problems, or values make focus feel necessary? When you connect flow sessions to something larger than ego, you'll show up more consistently and with deeper energy. Second, master the rhythm of work and rest. Flow is intense. It takes concentrated fuel. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Treat your recovery as sacred engineering. Sleep that resets, nutrition that sustains, movement that clears metabolic refuse, and social rest that grounds you emotionally. Think of recovery as the invisible scaffolding that allows you to climb higher. Champions measure their rest with the same seriousness they measure their effort. Third, translate small wins into habits. Daily micro-practices compound. The 5-minute ritual, the 10-minute focused sprint, the quick reflection after a session. These tiny acts aggregate into a powerful system. Keep a simple ledger. Did you protect your deep time today? Did you practice a ritual? Did you reflect? Small consistency beats intermittent heroics. Your future self is built by the tiny choices you repeat. Fourth, become a student of your edge. Growth lives where your skills meet harder problems. Each flow session should stretch you slightly. If your sessions feel comfortable for weeks, raise the bar. If they break you, lower it. This delicate calibration, always nudging the edge, creates sustainable growth. It's the same advice Napoleon Hill hinted at when he said that desire, combined with organized persistence, forms the backbone of achievement. Here, desire is your curiosity. Persistence is your practice. Fifth, commit to lifelong refinement. Flow is not a destination, it's an ongoing craft. Accept that you will always be iterating. Treat each interruption, failure, or dry period as information. What did it reveal about your environment, your energy, or your setup? Use that data to redesign your next session. The author who reworks every draft, the athlete who watches slow motion film, the entrepreneur who studies customer feedback, they all institutionalize reflection. Make feedback loops fast and kind. Sixth, align your relationships with your focus. People who support your growth will protect your rituals and celebrate your process. Communicate clearly. Tell your family what deep windows look like. Tell your team how short sprints will improve outcomes. Tell your friends why you sometimes step away. Social friction is one of the main drains on attention. Reduce it by negotiating agreements that respect both your life and theirs. This is not selfishness, it's stewardship of the work you were put here to do. Seventh, cultivate emotional resilience. Flow does not immunize you from disappointment. It sharpens your capacity to respond to it. You will face stalls, bad feedback, and days when nothing clicks. When that happens, use 3 tools. Curiosity, ask what happened. Compassion, don't punish yourself. And strategy, adjust the variables. Earl Nightingale's idea that we become what we think about is a reminder. Tend your inner narrative. Keep it useful. Keep it kind. Keep it true to the work. Eighth, practice selective devotion. You cannot do everything. Choosing what you won't do protects what you will do. When you refuse the trivial, you free bandwidth for the consequential. This is where courage is required. Say no to good things so you can say yes to the few things that matter. Your highest leverage work needs your best attention, not a diluted version split among endless options. Ninth, treat constraints as your ally. Constraints force clarity. Limit the tools you use, shorten your deadlines, or reduce your scope. When options narrow, creativity tightens and flow deepens. Constraints are design choices that create traction. They help you cut through the fog of endless possibility and move with decisive focus. 10th, make your progress visible. Share your work, not to seek validation, but to get honest feedback and to create social accountability. A simple ritual, post a short note about what you did this week and what you learned, builds a public ledger of progress. You'll be surprised how much traction appears when you make momentum observable. Now a practical plan to integrate everything into the next 30 days. Pick 3 non-negotiables. 1 is a sacred deep block each workday, 45 to 90 minutes. 1 is a nightly 5-minute reflection where you capture 1 win and 1 tweak. 1 is a weekly experiment. Change 1 variable, a ritual, a time window, an environment, and record results. Do these 3 consistently and treat them like personal contracts. I want you to also practice an identity shift. Stop saying, "I'll do that when I have time." Start saying, "I schedule time for what matters." Language changes your calendar. When you say it, you act like someone who protects their attention. When you act like someone, you become them. Remember the old teachers. Dale Carnegie taught that clear interest and kindness move relationships. Apply that to yourself. Be interested in your own work the way you'd be interested in someone you coach. Napoleon Hill insisted on a definite purpose. Define yours. Earl Nightingale reminded us that our habitual thoughts shape our outcomes. Tend those thoughts. Use these voices as tools, not idols, to sharpen your practice. This is the final challenge. Choose one domain of your life where you want to bring flow, not occasionally, but regularly. Name it now. It can be writing, coding, drawing, building a business, parenting with presence, or learning a craft. Commit to 30 days of the 3 non-negotiables with that domain. Write in the comments, which one domain will you commit to bringing flow into for the next 30 days? Be specific. Name the domain, your sacred daily window, and the one small ritual you'll use to start. Make this public so it becomes real. Here's the question that will push you. What will you give up so you can give more to what matters? If this video lit something in you, if you feel the muscles of focus twitching awake, then keep going. Do the work. Protect your windows. Iterate. And if you want more of these practical guides, short, fierce, and useful, subscribe and like this video.